this. Okay, so as we're all waiting for the summer to arrive and for many promising animated films to come out, I was made aware of this strange new animated film that came out recently called Sneaks. And it's an animated film that's about shoes. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Shoes. Anthropomorphic shoes. You have no idea how baffled I was when I first heard of this film and then seeing the trailer for it in front of the day the Earth blew up. This looked moronically bad. Because, I mean, it's a movie that focuses on shoes. 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 Oh my god, shoes. Seriously, I can't sit here and pretend to not be baffled by this. This looked really, really bad. Like, one of the worst ideas for an animated film I've ever seen in my life. This was an idea that was about as bad as the Emoji Movie. But that's the thing about being a critic who reviews animated films. I have to watch and report on it because I need to eat, and this job is probably the only thing I can do with my time. Thanks. So, yeah, I guess we'll have to talk about this as we wait for better animated films to come out this summer, like Elio and Bad Guys 2. And hey, I guess we can have fun along the way, so let's try to figure out the big question. How did we get here? How is an animated film about shoes coming out? Well, it's a weird story. First off, this film was announced all the way back in 2018, where it was revealed the film had a handful of Pixar alumni working on it, including Day and Night director Teddy Newton in the director's chair, and it also had comedian Harlan Williams writing the screenplay. And then for 3 years, production on this film went quiet until 2021, when the film had a complete production shakeup. Newton and Williams were both replaced by screenwriter Rob Edwards, who would now be taking over both as director and screenwriter in his feature film debut. And that seemed interesting at the very least. Edwards had previously had writing credits on the Walt Disney Animation Studios films Treasure Planet and The Princess and the Frog, which I both really liked, so it wasn't a bad choice. And he was also determined to make this a very African-American-centered animated film, and even got a cast like Lawrence Fishburne, Chloe Bailey, and Keith David, among others. Eventually, Edwards was joined by director Chris Jenkins, who has directed an animated film before. Unfortunately, that film was the abysmal Duck Duck Goose, which is one of the very worst animated films I have ever seen in my entire life. So, yeah, definitely an odd bag of talent. And eventually, the film was announced to be coming out in April, and that's what leads us here. Sneaks. An animated film about shoes. As you can probably tell, I wasn't terribly hyped to see this thing based on its premise and lame trailer. It seemed like a really bad idea of a film. But hey, I'm always someone who wants to go in with an open mind and see if I can be surprised. And I can say I was surprised. However, it's certainly not in the way the filmmakers wanted, because oh my god, this one was rough. Sneaks is quite frankly one of the most embarrassing animated films I've ever seen in my entire life. I've seen some bad animated films over the years, and this is a film that reaches new lows in ways I never would have imagined. I could not believe how bad this animated film was, nor the fact that it somehow managed to be released in the theaters in the state it's in, because it's an absolute disaster. I really hated this film. And I don't like saying something this blunt, but oh my gosh, people, this movie is really a new low. In New York City, a kid named Edson, played by Sway Lee, ends up winning a raffle prize of designer sneakers at the Guggenheim Museum, much to his delight. These shoes are twins named Ty and Maxine, played by Anthony Mackie and Chloe Bailey, with the latter excited to be with a new owner and to be worn, while the former wishes to remain a collector's item. Sure enough, a collector, aptly named the Collector, played by Lawrence Fishburne, offers to buy them from Edson, but he refuses to hand them over. Not wanting to take no for an answer, the Collector breaks into Edson's apartment and steals the shoes. However, as he's heading home, Ty falls out of his container, leaving Maxine with the Collector. Hoping to reunite with his sister, Ty teams up with a shoe on the streets named JB, played by Martin Lawrence, to get back with his sister in time before it's too late, I guess. Yeah, not an amazing plot, isn't it? Alright, so where do I start with this? Well, I guess we can start off with the first problem of the film, which is the concept, because it's a failure from the start. You know how I said in my Hit Pick review that I felt there were two types of bad animated films? One type which was doomed to fail from the start, and the other which had promise and just seemed to go wrong with bad decisions made during production? Yeah, this is a film that clearly falls into the first category. The idea of making an animated film about shoes is such a stupid idea, and there's limited potential with what you can do with that. I mean, it has been proven you can take things that are non-animate or non-human and make them anthropomorphic and give them a lot of personality. It's a proven formula, and it works. But shoes are not something you can pull a lot of personality out of. They have limited designs that aren't visually interesting. They're not all that dynamic to make characters out of, unless you're going for basic archetypes. And they just don't feel like something you can make a story around. They're clothes, something that's very basic and standard. And I just don't personally care about clothes enough to want to see them being brought to life. It's obviously clear that this film wants to do something similar to what Pixar does, based on that whole what if blank had feelings trope people say about them. In fact, Edward stated he wanted to make this film to be, quote, the hip-hop Toy Story. But comparing this film to Pixar or even Toy Story would be such an insult to Pixar. For one, when they do pick things to anthropomorphize, they're things that are dynamic enough to give personality and pull ideas from. Like toys, fish, rats, robots, emotions, even elements. There's a lot you can work off with that. Not with shoes. They just don't have that kind of appeal. And even then, Pixar has mostly started to move away from anthropomorphic stuff in general. Like, the films they've been making recently have been mostly human-centered stories focusing on human or human-esque characters, namely children. Hell, even their two upcoming films have human child protagonists. These films don't really fit into that whole what if blank had feelings trope people always say about them, except maybe Elemental, but Ember and Wade still felt humanized despite them being fire and water. It's definitely a sign of growth and evolution for them, and it's one that I welcome and applaud. I like seeing these kind of films from Pixar, and honestly, I'd be happy to see more of them. But I digress, I've really gotten off track. The point I'm trying to make is that this concept is a really bad one, and there was not going to be a lot the filmmakers could do with this. And it shows in the story because it's really bad. This story is so lazy and badly put together that it genuinely felt like it was being rushed out last minute. It's exceptionally uncreative as we just see these shoes wander around New York while being hunted down by this collector and running into other shoes and just doing things that I guess shoes do, like dancing underneath tables at wedding receptions or play basketball with chewed up bubble gum. I guess it's really uninteresting and dull, and above all else, it's so uncreative. Like, you could tell Edwards was struggling to figure out how to make an interesting story out of this because there's really no suspense or stakes to be found in this, nor is there anything surprising. These characters just wander around, do things, and then move on. But it's not even really clear what the ultimate goal is because the film doesn't let us get attached to the characters. We are barely introduced to Ty and Maxine when we first meet them and don't know who they are before they're stolen, nor do we really spend a lot of time with them being with Edson, so the bond they share with him doesn't even exist. Like, you compare that to Toy Story, where you spent the first few minutes really seeing Andy bond with Woody, as well as getting set up how Woody is the leader of the toys, and it's really made very clear what the situation is. This film doesn't do that. It moves on from scene to scene as if it was rushing through a presentation, and it just came across as so lazy. Not helping matters is the comedy, which is also exceptionally bad. Most of these jokes are just shoe puns, and they're awful. Like, really, really bad.
Sneaks don't talk round here. We converse.
Get it? Because Converse is a shoe brand? Isn't that funny? Wait, why aren't you laughing? You're supposed to laugh. Come on, laugh. So yeah, the story is a disaster, but it's not as big as a disaster as the animation is, which... What is this? I'm going to be completely blunt here. This is some of the worst animation I've ever seen in my life. The film was animated by Assemblage Entertainment, the same studio that also animated Norm of the North and Arctic Dogs, and let's just say this is par of the course for them. I don't think I have seen anything this messy and inconsistent before in the 9 years I've been reviewing animated films. For one, the shoe designs are not good. It's literally just shoes with dotted eyes and a mouth drawn onto them. That's it. I could have probably done the same thing with googly eyes and a Sharpie. The humans look really rubbery and are oddly designed. None of them look right. New York City doesn't even look like New York City. Like, the geography is wrong, and the buildings and landmarks are all over the place. Like, it's really clear that people who made this movie did not go to New York. But that's nothing compared to the way the characters are animated in this, which... What happened with this? The way the characters are animated in this film is bizarre. The frame rate and how these characters are animated is all over the place. Sometimes the characters are animated on ones, and sometimes they're animated on twos, and it goes back and forth and back and forth. And is it just a select few characters and just for specific scenes that are animated like this? No, it's the entire film, and this happens with all the characters. Like, they don't flip-flop between this frame rate for scenes. No, this happens between shots. Like, in one shot, they'll be animated on twos, and then literally in the next shot, they're animated on ones. I have never seen anything like this before, and there is no reason for them to be doing so. Except, I do know why they're doing this. The film is clearly trying to model itself off of the Spider-Verse films, which also had limited frame rate with its characters being animated. But at least in that film, the reason why they were doing that was because it enhanced the film's comic book look. This film is just doing it because the Spider-Verse films did it, and literally no other reason. And because it's all over the place, it just makes it look like a mess. And even worse, when certain characters are animated on twos in the foreground, in the background, the characters are animated on ones. It's so lazy, and I cannot believe they thought this would look good. If you're going to be experimental with your animation and do something stylistic, you need to do it in order to enhance the look of a film, or even to showcase a character's emotional state, like what they did with Robin in Wolfwalkers. I mean, why couldn't they have had the shoe characters be animated only on twos and the human characters animated on ones? Would that have been too hard? That would have made more sense than what happens in the final film. And I guess we should talk about the characters, and none of them are good. I really don't have a whole lot to say about them because, quite frankly, there really isn't much to say. Ty is a really annoying main character, and all he does is whine about being on the street until he doesn't. JB is a hustler shoe who's trying to scam Ty before changing his mind and wants to help him out with a very not caring performance by Martin Lawrence. Maxine is stuck in the apartment and wants to get out to help her brother, but isn't given anything to do. The other shoes are just there. And then there's the villain with the collector, except he's not the villain. based on what I've told you, you think he stole the shoes so he can sell them for a good price or to have them in his prize collection? Kind of like how Al stole Woody in Toy Story 2? Actually, no. He steals them for another character called the Forger, and this character wants these shoes just so he can destroy them. Why does this character want to destroy them? Well, don't ask questions, because there are no answers. It makes no sense whatsoever, and I don't even know why this collector is even working for him. Like, it's so confusing and badly thought out, and it really just adds on to how horrific the story is. So, yeah, as you can obviously tell, this is a real bad movie. But is there anything good about this? Well, members of the cast are certainly trying. Chloe Bailey, Lawrence Fishburne, and especially Keith David are giving this film performances that are way too good for this movie. They're trying their best with this wretched material, but there's only so much they can do to make it work. Because, straight up, Sneaks does not work. At all. At all. This is an abysmal animated film. The concept is lame and not really good. The story is unoriginal and not very clever. The animation is awful and exceptionally inconsistent. And while certain cast members are trying, they bring no life into these boring characters. This is a horrible, horrible movie and a complete embarrassment all around. And I cannot believe anyone thought this was a good idea. Just do not bother watching this film at all. It is not worth your time whatsoever. And if anything, I think you'd probably get more time just going shopping for shoes. And you know what? I'm just done talking about this film. Sneaks gets a 2. Yeah, 2. That's pretty fair. I don't know what the legacy of this film is going to be, apart from ending up on worst animated films ever made lists. But I just hope that the people who worked on this can move on to a better project after this. Because much like a rough pair of shoes, this film just left me feeling incredibly sore. Ugh, great. Now I'm making shoe puns. Ugh, lovely.
Sneaks don't talk round here. We converse.